Okay, could I invite you again to the front and the circle as much as possible? Now, today should be my lucky day, and Thursday always is my lucky day, and that is also my birthday in the week. So, first thing is fascinating. So, I have three people to introduce, and the last one for today is Roy Beckford. And Roy and my journey together in the PhD program is almost like brotherly, right? It has been very fulfilling. And Roy assures me that I have also been doing what I am supposed to do. So that makes me even more happy. So first of all, Roy is presenting to us a very interesting model of how to apply complex ideas like resiliency in a particularly complex and difficult situation like the Haiti. So the resiliency, core 9 resiliency course people, how many of you are here? 7 of you have registered, thank you. Now, Roy's presentation and his articles, his qualifying paper and his research design dissertation proposal will be part of your readings for that course. So pay attention, and if possible, I would like you to interview him to see how a concept like resiliency can be translated, applied in a particular situation like the Haiti. So Roy and I have been kind of theoretical body system. I also like theory and diagram and that kind of heavy stuff, and he is better than me, and so I really he has taught me so much. And this would he probably he doesn't know that. But we have the similar orientation of mega thinking, synthesizing, and also very engaged and applied in a situation where we don't want to be up there in the cloud, we want to bring that down to solve a situation. So in terms of my language about the Prescott College PhD program, what Roy is demonstrating to us is how can we move from protesting to proposing? How can we move from discourse to designing? Okay? And how we can move from problem posing to problem solving. So here is Roy.
Okay, thank you so much, Pramod. You're really hearing me properly?
Yeah.
All right. So, James scheduled me right after lunch. And what most people want to do after lunch is to burp and sit back and all that stuff. Where's James? Obviously not in here. Okay. So, I want to start this way. I have been really strongly influenced by scholars like Capra and others like Arne Ness, and into the idea of thought and deep thinking, measure folks like that. But I'm also influenced by my high school English teacher, who was from India. And this is not a rubbing you now promote, I know you're not from India. But my high school English teacher in Jamaica, was born, grew up, spoke with a very strong accent, and she encouraged us to think, and she always did this way. She wanted us to put her thinking caps on. So she'd say it like this: "Okay, students, put your stinking caps on." And there's always this little chuckle when I talk about that. But one particular afternoon, I was talking about that in a forum in Florida, and everybody chuckled, half chuckled like you guys did. I know you guys were full. But there's one guy at the back of the room that I hadn't noticed, and he had a turban on his head, and he was glaring at me when I said that. And he walked up to me right after that, and he said, "You mustn't make jokes about Indian people, because you have a funny accent too." And he said, quickly, and I'm going to lead this, he said, "If you want to give a joke, Roy, tell this one. I moved from Bombay to Kentucky, And the Kentucky jelly was horrible. Eat it on bread and crackers. It was the worst jelly in the world. Until somebody said, no, that's KY. That's not for Kentucky. But here's a message I want to take away from that. The whole idea of not understanding something, misunderstanding. So I take you into the whole issue of misunderstanding by reading you the first verse of the chorus from the Calypso by David Rudder, who's a calypsonian from Trinidad. And this is a picture of Toussaint de Louverture, who was a Haitian liberator. And here is Rudder's song. Toussaint was a mighty man, and to make matters worse, he was black. Back in the day, black men knew their places on the back. But this rebel he walked through, Napoleon, who thought it wasn't very nice. And so today, my brothers in Haiti still pay the price. He goes on to say, Haiti, I'm sorry. We misunderstood you. One day we'll turn our heads and look inside you. Haiti, I'm sorry. Haiti, I'm sorry. One day we'll turn our heads, restore your glory. So that's part of the ontology that actually brought me to this whole thing. Because Haiti for me represents something that I think is very, very important, and it's broader than it's broadening now to mean a lot more than it did when I was 15 and 16. I have to make it, as I said, I went to South America, college in Guyana. So I flew over Haiti for the first time in 1985. And I just couldn't imagine what I was looking down on. The lady next to me, she looked at me and she said, look how they have destroyed their country. And it started me thinking that, why do Haitians destroy their country like that? I mean, are they really doing this? And pause, put your stinking caps on, okay? So I'm going to get there. I started looking at Haiti from historical perspectives and all that stuff. I realized that essentially Haiti is a martyr of black freedom. And not just black freedom, freedom for the whole America, the whole South America, and North America too. It also stands as a microcosm of global change, ecological change, environmental change. And there are some vast global perceptions of Haiti that Haitians have done this to themselves. They deserve every bit of it. I'll get into that in a minute. But the words of Thomas Jefferson to the French ambassador in 1804 is pivotal here. Because Jefferson said to the ambassador, nothing would be easier than to supply everything for your army and navy and to starve. That word is pivotal here, starve or Toussaint. My question is, why is Haiti so poor, and what are the factors that reinforce the incessant cycles of poverty and suffering experienced by the Haitian population? That's my broad question that leads into this whole thing. So my approach to looking at Haiti, this huge, wicked problem, wicked here, using the scientific manner in which it's used these days. Wicked problem, a vicious, wicked problem. I have two approaches. One is the basic research, and the other is applied research. Because I think once you've understood something, then you want to actually apply some kind of trigger to see if you can make some kind of difference within that particular domain. So I'm going to go through this, and I'll tell you when I get to the point of the applied research. But I wanted to point out that in looking at basic research, the whole idea is to advance some fundamental understanding of a particular issue, a particular domain. And so my general approach looking at problems in Haiti is really to gather an understanding that's different from the understanding or the misunderstandings out there, the misconceptions out there that prevail on why Haiti is in the situation that it's in. Then I'll get into going even closer with the magnifier and looking at applying some kind of systematic inquiry to solve a particular problem. So this diagram actually I borrowed a tweet from Vandana Shiva, who used it to represent the market economy. Essentially what it's showing you is two triangles, one with the arrow pointing upwards, that shows a stable state, the other with the arrow pointing downwards, which shows a unstable state. And what's happening, the relationship between the colonial masters and the colony of Haiti over the years triggered growth in the colonial states, while at the same time triggering economic poverty in Haiti. But that's kind of like a very complex thing to look at. So my first goal, the basic research, is to conduct research, literature review that will reassess the historical factors, the processes, and so on that caused Haiti's poverty. Kind of changing the perception, changing the way we look at Haiti from what are you guys doing this year's stuff. But I use critical theory methodology, but under the lens of these conceptual notions that I found really, really interesting and pivotal in looking at a problem that most people just skim over. So victim blaming theory, political ecology, ecological economics, and cumulative causation of those lenses directly placed on the Haitian situation. Let me kind of explain that here. Victim blaming theory was developed by Ryan in the 1970s when he, in his book, Blaming the Victim. A lot of times when people suffer, particularly, and this was drawn from domestic violence issues where we blame women for why you let him beat you up, you were causing it, you did something to him, like busted your head open and stuff like that, And so we can apply this to situations like the Haitian situation. Later on, Jackson actually redefines that and came up with a theory, victim blaming theory, that looks at those factors that hold people back because we misunderstand why they're in the problem they're in. So here's some pictures that actually give you a pretty good synopsis of how people think about Haiti. For example, in the 1980s when Haiti AIDS exploded, a lot of North Americans and Europeans blamed Haiti. Oh, they're the cause of AIDS, they're perpetuating it, they're spreading it. And in the recent earthquake, where a very famous evangelist said, oh, they had a pact with the devil when Toussaint Louverture got his freedom or fought for his freedom from France. And that's the reason, it's because of voodoo. They have a pledge to the devil. That's what's causing all their problems. And then other people look at it and say, if I were Haitian, I would have a house that was earthquake proof, hurricane proof. I would be in the situation they're in. So we have this kind of attitude that really doesn't help people in bad situations. The other three lenses that I came up with are political ecology, ecological economics, and cumulative causation. So what I've done is juxtapose these things together, using part of that diagram from Shiva, and show a correlation between the political ecology in Haiti over the years and what happens in the ecological ecology as a consequence of that. So here's how I actually did this. I actually broke these down, and we try to put things in boxes, and so I put these in boxes as much as I could. So I broke this down from 1492 right down to 2013, 2014 now. I need to fix that. To show these stages, the political ecological stages that Haiti went through, starting from the Columbian Exchange. When Europeans first came to the New World and landed on the island of Hispaniola, that was the first place that Europeans came. And immediately there was an explosion, an exchange of all kinds of biological things and so on. So there's cattle introduced, goats were introduced, bacteria was introduced, grasses and so on. Invasive species just exploded all across the island. Haiti, the third of Hispaniola that the Haitians now have, is the most mountainous part of that country, and they suffered significantly as a consequence of that. Now, there's some other major problems like mercantilism, which is the economic tradition of colonial Europe, where they dictated the terms of production. In other words, raw materials can be generated in the colonies, but they cannot make any final product. So you can actually then grow sugarcane and make molasses, but you can't make sugar. It was against the law. It has to be made in France to develop that. So an agricultural logging, because there are large trees in these new parts of the world that the Europeans were. And so all these factors became a pariah state after 1804 because they dared to get the freedom from France. Became an occupied state in 1915 when America actually decided that no, we got to fix issues there. And a fragile state after 1948 when all the logging occurred and Haiti was forced to pay back France for its freedom. They were actually charged 150 million francs for their freedom. Compare that 150 million francs to the 60 million francs that the United States paid France for the Louisiana Territory. By the way, I want to make sure you understand this. The Louisiana Territory was not Louisiana, the state of Louisiana. It's not. It's much, much larger. It stretched from the Mississippi in the east to the Rocky Mountains in the west, the Gulf of Mexico in the south, the Canadian border in the north. 15 states. They paid $60 million grants. But Haiti was actually forced to cut all its lumber down in those years between the mid 1800s and 1948 to pay back reparations to France for the area to get free. So it became a fragile state as a result of all those factors and became a wealthier state after Baby Duvalier was actually basically forced to France. And all these factors, desertification, peak soil, peak charcoal, because things have gotten so bad in Haiti that they only have about 10% of their soil remaining. Lots of research has gone into that. Johnson Williams has shown that only 10% of natural soil is remaining in Haiti, and less than 1% of the forest cover remains. So there is ecological collapse, agricultural collapse, energy and food poverty, and absolute poverty, which means people don't have the resources, the basic resources to actually feed themselves or fend for themselves. And so there's population explosion as a consequence. I grew up in Jamaica where when people are poor, they have more children because it's actually it's welfare when they're older. When you have a pension, you don't worry about children. When you have no pension, you have children. That's the whole difference. And so all these things are cumulative upon the economy, which created situations, looking at it from an ecological economy perspective, that cause collapse. So what I want to show here is that the way we've traditionally looked at Haiti needs to change. And this is fundamental. I've done much of this work already, and I appreciate the efforts of my committee for allowing me to do this during my QP and DP. Alright, so Haiti has moved from a situation of financial colonialism. I talked about all the costs to them economically and ecologically. And they're moved now to what Klein describes as disaster capitalism. Because the capitalism that came out of colonialism actually created disaster which Haiti exists right now. So they ought not to be blamed for their demise, somebody else ought to be. But here's the problem. About 30 million trees of what's left per year right now is removed for making charcoal, which Haitians depend on for cooking energy. The replanting rate of 20 million trees occur every year. Most Americans go down there and say, we need to plant trees. Trees need to be planted. But only about 40% of those trees survive, which means that 3 trees per person are removed per year at the replanting rate of 2 and a survival rate of less than 1. And everybody says to me when I go to Haiti, we need to plant trees. And I say, I'm beginning to think that we don't need to plant trees on non-existent soil. We need to probably make soil. So here is what has occurred with the charcoal chain, for example, which most of the development agencies basically decry and say Haitians should be using charcoal, even though they have no other choice. And we know that charcoal has problems or causes problems in Haiti. Sorry. I'll actually put this chain up there to basically show you the flow between ecological, economic, and commercial values of charcoal. And we know that the ecological values are pretty bad. Fell trees, what Haitians are resorting to recently is to actually remove tree roots in order to make charcoal because there are no trees anymore. And there's deforestation and soil and land erosion at amazing levels. And then lots of agriculture and biodiversity and poverty as a consequence of that. But there are positive parts of the charcoal chain. So everybody looks at this whole thing and say it's bad, 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 but is it all bad? It's not all bad is bad. The positive is that the economic values of employment, charcoal actually employs more than 150,000 people in Haiti. So there might be a way of looking at basically finding what we can replace this with, or finding what we can actually supplant the charcoal chain with, to keep some of these positive parts of the chain. So essentially, if you fly over to right now, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see the Dominican Republic, and you're going to see Haiti. And by the way, the Dominican Republic is poor. Nobody tell you anything else, but they're rich in comparison. Because the Spanish had a different approach in the Dominican Republic as opposed to the French, who took a lot of the resources of Haiti up. So as I said earlier, only about 10% of Haiti's soils remain. They're named one of the countries least able to rebound from natural disasters, and basically all the countries in the world has the worst to rebound from any issues to do with climate change. But we can get down and look at the contemporary reality there. 9.8 million people, 80% live below the poverty line, which means that they earn less than $1 per day, the US dollar per day. 54% live in extreme poverty, which I'm sure you can, conjecture. Subsistence farming, though, is the main source of food for more than 70% of people. And despite this, though, they import 70% of their food into Haiti. Despite those factors. So we recognize that there needs to be a re-diagnosis, and we looked at issues that can change how we look at the problems in Haiti. But at the very same time, I also recognize from looking at the political ecology and ecological economics, using those approaches, that the root of Haiti's environmental problem and social problem lie in some basic things like soil, which triggers essentially hosts the basic biogeochemical cycles. Biogeochemical is very simple. Those biological, geological, and chemical factors that sustains people and their livelihoods. And so I can easily look at those biophysical factors that happen in Haiti that cause some of these problems, the anthropogenic factors, which all result in carbon loss. So runaway soil erosion is really large source of loss to the carbon cycle, which is the most affected cycle of the biogeochemical cycles. This problem exerts the greatest effect on the delivery of ecosystem services that essentially sustains people and take them out of poverty problems. So I have an illustration which shows what's happening in terms of soil. Here is what a normal soil profile looks like, where you have the organic horizon, the A horizon, the B horizon, and the C horizon of bedrock. Most of this is gone in 90% of Haiti. And that is actually where we invest. Our development agencies across the world are investing millions and millions of dollars into planting trees. Enough said. Here are the ecosystem services that are really in absolute jeopardy or already gone. If you can go skip through that is regulation of major biogeochemical cycles, which soil does. Soil is essentially the skin of the land. If you get the 90-degree burn, whatever, you're going to die. Essentially, this is exactly why Haiti's dying. So you can basically look at this. I won't go through it all, but provision of clean drinking water, that is actually lost in Haiti as a service, ecosystem service. And then things like production and consumption, regulation of atmospheric gases, they're a tipping point. And there's lots of literature exactly I referred to bring me to that point. But it's very interesting to see all those problems that are beginning to occur. And then you can actually take that information, the old issue of ecosystem services, and look at the budgets which inform them, the ecosystem budgets that inform them. We know that the success of people, animals, and so on depend on the productive capacity of the ecosystem. And in order for humans to thrive, they depend on the capacity for that macronutrients to flow up from the soil. This is what we call the trophic hierarchy, from primary production all the way up to where people are. This is actually turned around on its head in 90% of it. So, my proposal, and this goes into the second part of my proposal, the applied part of my proposal, where I want to advance an integrated strategy then that looks at making connections between soil and people, that examines soil building techniques with biochar. I'll get to biochar in a little bit, to restore the basic biogeochemical cycles, which is really what's causing nations to suffer, which are essential to redeveloping the ecological services on which people depend upon. And so I've come up with this essential cycle that looks at composted biomass, charred biochar. Biochar is essentially charcoal that you reapply to the soil because it actually enhances the growth of microbes that then creates more soil. That's essentially what biochar is. Right now, Haiti burns all its charcoal for food. And so the heat energy that goes into making charcoal, all of that, we can actually begin to twist that up a little bit so that the country benefits from something that they already know. And of course, this is not a forum where I can go into detail about this, but I'll be happy to talk about this at some other point. So what I'm proposing here are a few things. to examine the practicability of rebuilding soil horizons in Haiti. Essentially, by using blended biochar and compost to create anthrosols. Anthrosols are simply soils that man makes. Then develop a closed loop cycle between the biomass pyrolysis, which is burning this matter. So in this case, in the case of Haiti, it would be charcoal, and farm soils. So to create a link between that, and I'll explain that further. And then investigate how an integrated biomass production system that incorporates both the production of food and fuel crops will impact Haiti's biogeochemical cycles and to restore ecological interactions and ecosystem services. And so throughout my research here, both the basic research and the applied research, I have levels of triangulation that essentially refocuses the approach. We're not using a total reductionist strategy, or we're using a holistic strategy to look at the problem and to apply some kind of remedies to it. Here's an example. Here's what Haiti's soil looked like. Here is terra preta, which is soil that was made by ancient people in South America years ago. This is actually several feet of actual soil that was created in South America and also in Europe. The solution doesn't lie in modern applications. We know that that has failed tremendously in Haiti. Nobody cares about exactly what the soil and ecology of Haiti. They care more about giving people 1 meal a day, stuff like that. But these solutions may be tested and demonstrated, and technical knowledge has often been avoided, in most cases avoided. And this is what I'm looking to apply in the Asian context to see whether we can make some inroads into the issues. Once again, anthrosols with prominent characteristics. They're made by people. We know lots of anthrosols that ancient people have made. Plastic soils in Europe, paddy soils in Europe too. The most well-known is terra preta in India. It's made in South America by Indians. They're usually well-drained, have an active soil fauna that then begins with biogeochemical soil processes again. Root penetration resistance is low. That means trees and small crops and food crops will grow very well. And it's essentially an approach, I think, that is necessary in this case. Just a couple of examples. In Germany, plastic anthrosols have been used where people took peat and basically put it in their animal barns. The urine and dung is, of course, is passed out, and that they took that, put it in their fields, and found out later on that they could create horizons of very fertile environments or farms where then they then could grow crops. And this is essentially what the terra preta was. But in Haiti, the Arawaks and Tainos who lived there before European contact also had an approach called canoe mounding, which essentially was building and making anthrosols. Took a lot of time. But this is little known, little studied, little understood, and only a tiny amount of information is available on this. And I've been on an exploration to find more, and it's been difficult to do that. So here are my goals for the applied part of the research. One is to make anthrosols to reconstruct the old air horizons of farm soils. And my question there is, can the ancient techniques of biochar applications and canoe mounding create anthrosols capable of improving Haiti's soil ecology? I have several objectives, including test plots in Florida, which I can monitor when I'm not in Haiti. I have a timeline that I've given to my committee, and the methodology, field study methodology, which will apply all kinds of analyses, including ANOVA, to basically deal with the question and the goal. My second goal is on these developed anthrosols to grow a complement of food and energy crops, which then the farm family can actually utilize and not depend so much on trees and tree roots. The question here was the application of an IFES, Integrated Food and Farming System, designed on basic permaculture principles on the created anthrosol soil, provide a sustainable share of household food and energy needs. And then, of course, my methodology here is participatory action research with appreciative inquiry to go in there and begin to get people to understand how this thing works, why it works, so that it benefits everybody concerned. Third goal is to reduce further and future carbon loss by supplanting the charcoal chain. The question, can the Haitian household adopt biomass energy use and production practices to demonstrate a closed loop system between farm soil, food energy farming, and cooking methods? The methodology is case study methodology. I'm only focusing on about 4 families. They're obviously, one of the things that constrain us is money and time. And we have, as I'm advised by one of my committee members, you have a lot of time after your PhD because you got that, get that to go do a lot of things and change the world. So don't change it here. Just change a few lives right here. Essentially, to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about here, we've got the horrible depleted rodent soils in Haiti. On top of that, we put anthrosols, and on that we put a permaculture garden. And we actually then begin to feed back char-producing char, but by basically having people begin to experiment with clean cook stoves, which is abundant in Haiti, they don't use them. But what I want to do is get people into the culture of understanding how these work, returning the char back, so you have a cycle between soil, farm, and kitchen, essentially. The ultimate aim is to move away from the charcoal chain I showed you to a biomass biochar consumption chain where we change those ecological values so that we grow these high fiber, fast growing species and food crops that will stimulate agricultural productivity, create soil rejuvenation from what I showed you about with anthrosols earlier, and then biomass composting. But we create a cycle and still maintain that part of that part of the charcoal chain that most people have said, oh, it's not a good thing. We retain that part by simply using this approach. So, long term, essentially, these are the components and impacts of the integrated food energy system. This is what I want to look at. Looking at the merging between food crops and energy crops in an integrated approach, which essentially has three basic benefits: ecological benefits, human livelihood benefits, and environmental benefits. So, my collaborators include ECHO, the Environmental Concerns for Hunger organization in Fort Myers. For over 30 years, they have worked with small farmers nearly everywhere in the world. These are pictures of the plot that I'm developing there. I had 30 students from the University of Miami that helped me actually chop and dig and do all that stuff. And here we have a biochar oven that we use to make char to go back into that. In Haiti, I have two collaborators. The first is High Trees, which is a group concerned with social issues. And they have assisted me over the years with doing a lot of work in Haiti. Here we actually work with some farmers who are looking at growing food in what is not soil, but to make compost and then grow things in small holes of compost. And so essentially what I'm going to do is just broaden that study. Here is a picture of an artisan in Haiti who made charcoal stoves. Part of the problem of the limited adoption of Haitians of the charcoals, the char stoves, the clean cook stoves, is that nobody knows how to fix them, nobody knows how to make them. It's never been a part of the culture of Haitians. So these stoves were sent to Haiti, use these, so it's good for you. And the artisans have no idea how to fix them and how they work. So what I'm going to be doing is working with High Trees to actually teach these people how to make these clean cook stoves so that it becomes a part of the fabric of their culture, artisan culture. I'm also working with the Sakala project that I've been working with for several years. I did my practicum here. What I've done with them is to make compost from all the waste generated in the marketplaces, and also lots of pulverized charcoal that people throw out because they have no use of it. This is biochar. What we do is we mix that with compost to create really good, rich, fertile soils or anthrosols, which we then place in strips on a farm at Sakala, on which we grow things like moringa plants, which a moringa tree, if you don't know about moringa, is a high protein tree which is edible and which can be used for giving people vitamins and minerals in areas where people are starving. This is a sunflower plant that the Sakala project planted a year ago. They sent me a picture of this because they were so proud of it. I want to thank Dr. Pramod Purjuli, Dr. Hugh McLaughlin, Dr. John Lynn, and my external reader, Dr. Tim Motis, for kind of essentially giving me the confidence to move with this work, which I'm just excited to go finish. And then, of course, as Dr. McLaughlin always tells me, you think you'll be finished, your work just begins. Thanks.
Wow, that was a high power. There are two kinds of people in Pale Decorum. One group I call it scholar activist, the other one is activist scholar. What's the difference? He is the first type, right? He's a scholar activist. But you finished all your time. What are we going to do about question and answer?
I don't know.
Okay. So one or two questions. Yes. Yes, Ken.
Roy, that was terrific, first of all.
Thanks.
Quick statement and question. You may have seen that ship the Nina was found off a reef in the coast of Haiti last week.
Yes.
And the Haitian paper read that it was justice that Columbus's oppressive ship was sunk on the coast of Haiti.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question I have for you is, knowing around the Caribbean, the volcanic islands like Haiti is, that oppressors stripped many of the islands there of their resources, and the topsoil washed into the sea. So the soil that you're producing, how do you keep it stable because of that being right in the hurricane belt there, of keeping it from washing back into the sea?
By simply combining the biochar approach I mentioned, the traditional anthracite, creating an area where there's a flat area where there's anthracite, and then putting the Kanuka mounds around these, the lip of these when you're moving down the hillside. And that essentially acts as a terrace that prevents erosion or leaching of the soil.
James, is it time for you to